Hey, this is Sasha. Welcome to another Inside Day at Backstage Income. And today what I'm going to do is show you behind the scenes, kind of mostly as what I can, how I go about making thumbnails for YouTube, and also more so how I do the photo shoot to creating face shots. Now, you have to have that face shot or some kind of icon or some kind of picture to be able to create a thumbnail for YouTube. So for me, as I go in and start these things going, I just actually finished the photo shoot. And the first thing you want to do actually is, before we head on over to the green screen, which I'm going to show you over here, this is what it looks like. It's kind of hard because I got the camera here stationary, but it's nothing fancy or exciting. So here, let me just try and get the focus there with this camera out of the way. There's the green screen, and really all I do is stand in front of it and take a bunch of pictures. So I set the camera up, this one, or I'll move the other one that I have, and I'll just set it to take a picture every second. Okay, so that's really all it does. And I just change the pose. So for 1 second, I might be like, then another second, I might go. So we're just changing poses, and that's really all it is. Going this way, this way, this way, this way, whoa, ha, surprise. So you get a whole bunch of different poses, and then you're able to kind of eventually sort through these pictures and then create thumbnails kind of like this. By the way, a quick little tip before we get started on your photo shoot. I use a Sephora kind of makeup thing. This one is called Bright Future, but again, you have to get one that matches your skin tone. And just to, as you can see, there's a couple little blemishes here sometimes because I'm scratching, or there's a zit, or my son scratched me, whatever the case is. You just put it on before the photo shoot. It just makes your life a lot easier, so you don't have additional editing to do. I mean, you just try to make it as simple as possible on these edits. Because otherwise then you have just a lot of marks you're going to try to get rid of if it's important to you. Otherwise, for me, just 1 second or two, just dab it on and then you're done. So I'll put that link in the description for you. But again, you make sure that the skin matches up, or you could watch a few makeup tutorials. It's not anything like rocket science that you have to do. So when I look at this, and when I go through and dump all my memory cards, right now I just did 2 segments. I did a black shirt and I did a white shirt. So it's 6 a.m. as you can see by the modified date. So I'll show you what I did with the white shirt. We'll go ahead, and here's kind of the pulling them up, give you an idea real quick. So you can see I do 2 to 3 couple poses. So now what I do is I go through these and I delete the ones I don't want. So say I don't want this one, say I don't want that one, say I don't want these because the reflection of the glasses, say a few are blurry, just the eyes look squinty or something like that. So sometimes I'll just go through it and just simplify it a little bit. And you're just kind of getting ideas from past posts you did, other ideas and poses you may be doing in the future. And I do the same thing here with the black shirt, and this is sometimes good for variation. I don't like shirts that are too colorful, because if you use shirts that are too colorful, then what happens is it just takes away too much from the thumbnail, and it limits you. Can you still use them? Yeah, because like let's say you use an orange shirt, then you use orange text. It's still possible, but it makes it less flexible. So I go ahead and do a few of these as well with the black shirt, but really 2 shirt colors is kind of all I need, like something very subtle. And then the other thing would be something dark, so that way it can inverse. And then eventually we can go ahead and play with these different thumbnails here. So now what I really do is, after I go ahead and sort these things, my next step is to go ahead and create an action. So I'll go ahead and close this down. I'll take one of these, like let's say we take this one, and you can see it's kind of dark. With the thumbnails, I like them popping a little bit more. So what I'll do is I'll create an action. So here's an action. I'll make a new folder actually, and we'll just call this folder new batch. You can name it whatever you want, and I'll start the new action. Let's just say remove the green. So I always save them as PNG, because then it's just easy to drag and drop them in, and they're all transparent. So that way they're done, because this is for the thumbnails. I don't really reuse them for anything else. Sometimes on the website, which is also handy because if I show you the Rise to Learn website right here, so this one is a kind of PNG transparent one that we used from the past. Also, if we go to, let's say, Backstage Income, this one, as you can see, PNG transparent, and this one as well. So they're similar, it's just that these have a little bit more of a body to them. So it's a different photo shoot. But here in this case, what I do is you could go ahead and there's two ways to kind of do this. Really, there's quite a handful. You could do a color range, and when you do a color range and get rid of the color, so you can see I could click it, hold shift, click a few different spots and add to it. But the problem I found with the color range is even then, sometimes it will get my eyes and other things. In this one, it works out well, but as you start doing other pictures, let's just go ahead and let me show you maybe as you get into it. It gets more reflection. So maybe something off the phone, and I'll show you this one. You can see the phone right here has some green to it. So that can actually be gone. Okay, so on one hand, this is the best and easiest approach is to do it by color, because that's why you did the color, right? So if I do a color range here, let's just say here, and I select it, and I keep holding shift while I do this, I'll select it. Sometimes that actually gets in there. Now, what you could do is if I go to layers here, and now I go ahead, let's just say I make a new layer or duplicate this layer and then mask that layer. So what you can see right here, some things did not get picked up. So that's actually going to show in your video and in your thumbnail. So that's kind of the issue and the problem. Now, of course, what you're going to do is before you do this is you do the inverse and then you select it. But all those things that I showed you there earlier, they just don't work. So I set up an action. I'm going to go edit, fill. I'm going to fill it with, let's do white just so you can see where the greenery is. So you can see there's some stuff right here that's on screen that's not getting rid of it. And that's really why I don't use the color select. So my favorite way of doing this, and I'll show you, I'm going to run the action so you can see it, is doing it this way. So here we go. We're going to set up an action. I'm going to go ahead, hit record. So I'll go like this. I'll do this magic wand actually. And I select the corners, and I make sure when I try to take the pictures, I don't use too much of the corners. Kind of do tolerance about 36. So I'll hit shift and click, and you can see this little part isn't selected. So I'll just go down kind of this 3 or 4 times. And I'll go above right here 3 or 4 times holding shift, and I keep doing it because what it's doing is it keeps adding to selection, feeling for the colors. Okay, now what I'll do is I can duplicate the layer, hide the other layer. Then what I do is there's going to be a little edge here by the ears and stuff. So I'll do select, modify, and I believe it's expand this time. We'll do about 3. See, so it compresses it in. And now I'll do select inverse. Of course, you could use shortcuts. Hit mask. And now it gets it. The downside with doing this method is sometimes you manually have to go in and get some of these other ones, like this one, in the future, but not this first batch. So now I went ahead and did this. And then I'll also go ahead and do image adjust. I'm going to brighten it up. And the brightness for me is always hidden because I actually use Photoshop on the other screens. So here we'll brighten that up a bit. We'll adjust the contrast. Oh, I'm doing it on the mask. So again, image, adjust, brightness. There we go. Brightness a little bit, contrast a little bit. So you can see right there. It just depends how you light things up. And then go ahead and add a color balance is something else that I add in. I make it a little bit more bluer, and a little more reds, but not too much. So that way it'll pop a little bit there. And that's pretty much it. And now what I do is File and kind of export it. So it's Control Alt Shift Save, and this is your PNG. The settings that I do is fairly just transparent. That's the goal. Actually, it's taking a bit to load. If you're not planning to use this anything beyond kind of YouTube thumbnails, you could leave it as it is. For me, my photos are 4,608 by 3,072 at this point. If you are just using it for YouTube, you could go ahead, image size, and go ahead and tweak that down to, well, you could do about 2,000. And that should be big enough for YouTube thumbnails. And then that way, you know, as the face shot needs to be resized a little bit, you could stretch it. And then you could go ahead and save it. And that'll really speed up the saving process, because the saving process on this is really what takes a bit of time. I'll go ahead, hit save. It's going to ask me where I want to put it. I already did a test on this, so I'm going to go ahead and put it here in temp work. I'll put it right here, save. And then we'll go ahead, hit close, no, and now we'll stop the action. So now what I do, and I'll just give you an idea right here. Here is the face shot that we just did. You can see transparent, boom. And if you compare it to the other one, you can see the color is not really the same. So here's one, here's kind of the other. So here, what I do now is I select a bunch of these at a time. So I'll typically do about 20 to 50 at a time. So let's say, in this case, just to show you the example, drag these over right here. It opens them up. Now you can go ahead and do batches on Photoshop by the folder, but I find if you run into any errors or issues, you sometimes have to start again, and then also you don't know where you left off. So I like to do it in batches, because then what I do is I go back and fix some of those corrections. So now all I do is go ahead and automate batch. And you can see right here it says open files, or you could do folder. I do open files just because I've seen that this, you know, you don't run into a lot of trouble. And now what we'll do is we'll just hit OK, and you'll see it start running here in the background. You'll see, hey, it's starting to work, and now it all does it automatic. So it's just running through these photos. You can see it's selecting, it's doing the exact same thing that I just did. And of course, if there's any issues on the selection part, it'll still select that, because I did use that magic wand. I didn't do the color version of it, but with the color, as you saw, it's not as clean to remove it. Sometimes that's good to finding things, but it's not as clean. I haven't found a way to do that. So I find that this way seems to be the best way. And you can see right here, these pictures, they're kind of coming in right now, right there. So they're coming in as they continue to get saved. And just to show you, there's the difference. Here's the after, the before there is on the right. And yeah, look, there you go. And now what I'll need to do is clean up some of these right here and there. And now what we can do is just drag and drop those in on any thumbnail in the future. So, okay, now once everything is really done, what I need to do is I'm just going to drag one of these over, show you the last kind of final step. So you just go through kind of a few of these that maybe missed things. So I'll just select this, delete, and all you have to do now is hit Control Save, and it'll just resave. And then you can just close it out. You could create an action for this, but I find it's a little time consuming. So instead, finding those little items where, you know, it's part of the cell phone, or it's cutting in, or you're blocking out some of the green on your selection, you can go ahead and do that. Sometimes what I've also done in the past is where I've selected spots where they were close and my hand was here, so the whole hand was kind of gone. And what I had to do is go back and just kind of redo those manually. But other than that, I mean, you know, most of these came out pretty clean, as long as you leave enough greenery here and greenery kind of here. I find that there's not a big deal or issue. At times I might create a new action if I want this face or skin tones even brighter, which sometimes tends to be the case to use in thumbnails, so I might run it through another brightness action. But other than that, that's basically how I go about setting up these face shots in batches. And then once we're done, I'm just going to show you here, you'll get something like this. So I have, actually this should be 2019 face shots. I've done 2019 face shots twice this year already. So here was a couple of that I did for the website. So you can see, hey, sometimes I'll hold up some books. And of course the color could be changed or tweaked and adjusted, but it gives you an idea. So I just kind of do a bunch of shots. This one has maybe 1,500 shots because I did a lot of them with different shirt colors. So you can see some are blacks, you know, so there's a lot of mix and variation. So you'll get something like this. The one that I just finished out, I called it 2020, which I didn't fully finish out yet, sorting and organizing. But you can see here, there's a lot of face shots there. And some may never make it on the YouTube thing, but it gives us ideas or just an asset library to pull from. So that way, hey, we don't have to create a custom picture in the future. And that way, it just makes it a lot easier, right? So you create them, and then you go ahead and you just use them. There's a lot of assets for you there. And with time, you just drag and drop and pick out which one you need, and they're good to go. All right, so thank you so much for joining me in this week's video. I hope you found it helpful and insightful to how I go about, you know, taking photos for these YouTube thumbnails and then doing the whole editing process and the whole thought process behind creating the actions. So that way it makes it easier later on for you to create YouTube thumbnails. Maybe it'll save you a little bit of time. So thank you so much. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube by clicking the face icon or join our newsletter list by clicking the link right over here. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time.